Terrific. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Milford Inland Wetlands Agency for August 21st, 2024. Lisa, please call the roll.
Daniel Bedecker. Dan.
And the screen is frozen. He's not actually sleeping.
Not answering.
He's frozen.
Okay. Ranjit Bahav. Brian Black.
Here.
Jim Connors.
Here.
Matthew Connors. Steve Munson.
Here.
Nick Ritchie.
Here.
Julie Valvo.
Here.
Buddy Field.
Here.
Brendan Magnan.
And I'm here. Thank you, Lisa. Dan Bedecker, if you can hear us, looks like he just dropped. Good. Okay. Yeah. I think he figured it out. Okay, well done. Thanks, everybody. Just as first order of business, Commissioner Field, please serve as designated alternate this evening. Thank you. Just as a reminder, as we continue to host remote meetings, there's a few statutory obligations that we must follow in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act and Governor Lamont's executive orders. This meeting is being recorded, and will be made available on the City of Milford website. As always, during the meeting, please raise your hand to be acknowledged by me, the chair, and please state your name and name and address for those members of the public that wish to be recognized. Otherwise, thank you. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. If you can unmute your lines and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd appreciate it. I pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
United States of America,
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with
liberty
and justice for
and
all.
justice for all.
Well done, everybody. Thank you so much. Moving on to items C on the agenda, public comments. Is there anyone here from the public wishing to address the commission on topics not otherwise in the agenda? I do see a person on the screen that's a member of the public, Mr. Wettenstein. Just if you have a matter you'd like to discuss with the agency, please feel free. Perhaps you're in attendance for one of the matters on the agenda. Okay, moving on. Old business. Do we have any old business, Mary Rose? I believe no.
We do. We have item D1, IW 240055 Cascade Boulevard. It's map 102, block 807, parcel 6F. Mr. Bedecker's trying to get back in.
Okay, we'll wait.
He's rebooting. This is a proposal by Cascade Milford LLC to construct an office warehouse and a caretaker house with construction grading, drainage, and parking within 100 feet of a wetland in the South Central Shoreline watershed. The applicant is proposing a retaining wall within 23 feet and grading within 8.5 feet and stormwater infiltration within 9.5 feet of the wetland that is on the site. Silt fencing is proposed within 2 feet of the wetland, and they are proposing a double row of silt fence. The city engineer review was received on 8/19. He requested additional information on the stormwater system from Mr. Wasmer and asked that the buildings be staked to show the locations on the property. At our meeting on 8/7, the agency had interest in a site walk once the city engineer's review was received. Mr. Wasmer is the consultant on this project, and he's here this evening. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mary Rose. Mary Rose, do you want to summarize the engineering review? Is there anything noteworthy that you want the agency to pay attention to there?
Sure, I can share his recommendations with you. How's that?
Great.
Let's make sure we're sharing the right screen. Nope, we are not. Unfortunately, Zoom does not want to share the screen that I've got the things on. Let's try that again. Hold on. There we go. Are you all seeing the agenda?
Yes, now we are.
Okay, that's now we should, and here comes Mr. Bedeker.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Field, go ahead.
I just noticed in this, there's just a typo on, my recommendations as followed. Seems to be on number D, it says see item 18. Because it references stormwater mitigation, I think it should be 19 because 18 references sidewalks.
Yep, you're right.
Thank you for your thorough assessment of that, Mr. Field.
You're welcome.
So you mentioned number 1 in your overview. Are there other ones that you want to highlight for the record here?
No, basically, he's asking that the building be staked. They, looking in the field, he noted that the site's well overgrown. And it's difficult to find your place on the site simply because of the curved nature of the property. So he's asked that the buildings be staked in the field. In speaking with Mr. Wassmer this afternoon, we discussed that since the items that are closest to the wetland are the wall and the infiltration system, a portion of the discharge for the infiltration system, it would be prudent to stake those. It would be helpful for us to see those in the field.
Thank you, Mary Rose. Anything further?
I can put the plans up if you'd like for Mr. Wassmer. We also have, just to give you an idea of what we're looking at, if that changed and resized. This is from our permitting software. You can see the locations in the field. It's basically a Google map. So this street is Cascade Boulevard. If you go down this way, the agency approved this building several years ago. It was, I think it was 12 units of housing. And so the site's wooded and it has a curve. We go around. So we get over here to by the fire hydrant, which is close to where we exit the property. Just to give you an idea of what the property looks like from the street and what we'd be walking.
Thank you, Mary Rose. Any considerations from the agency at this time? You've thought about it. Does anyone want to make a motion for a site walk?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Chair, well, first, what, we have a date that we might want to settle on, or?
I'm open to suggestions. Do we want to do it an hour before our next meeting?
So
Or-
fairly,
5
I'm
p.m.
personally,
Go
through
ahead.
you,
Sorry,
Mr. Chair.
sorry, Mr. Munson here.
that would be what day, Mary Rose?
Our next
September.
meeting is September 4th.
September 4th. Did I hear somebody mention 5 p.m. would be,
That's what I suggested.
that's
Through you,
okay?
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ms. Mary Rose.
I'd like, if you don't mind, Mr. Wassmer's input on how long he thinks it might take to walk this site. And just be cognizant that it is well vegetated, so we're all going to want to do tick checks and clear that out before getting on a Zoom. So make sure we've all got enough time to do that. Ron, do you have a rough idea of how long it would take to see the silt fencing, the location of the wall and the stormwater?
I think a half an hour would cover it. It's wooded, but it's not that large of a property. I mean, a big portion of the property is wetlands, and we don't intend on walking into the wetlands. We'll be in the uplands, so.
Yeah.
It's a couple 100 feet of perimeter along the wetlands that we'll have to walk. And shouldn't take that long. We'll mark it out prior to the agency arriving.
Would 5:30 make sense, or is that half an hour, 6 o'clock? We're trying to sort of connect it so that we're all sort of,
5:30 will work for me.
we're kind of all volunteers and trying to figure out what works for everybody here.
So, I'll make myself available, whatever the commission chooses amongst yourselves. How's that?
Thank you, Mr. Westmer. Any ideas, any suggestions?
I'm
I
personally
think
good.
5:30 would work.
5:30 sounds okay.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, Chair, what was the date again?
September 4th,
4th.
Okay. Yep, that's fine.
5:30.
5:30 you said?
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that a site walk be scheduled for application IW 240055 Cascade Boulevard on September 4th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. That is my motion.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Daniel Bedecker,
Aye.
Brian Black,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Steve Munson,
Aye.
Nick Ritchie,
Aye.
Julie Valvo,
Aye.
Buddy Field,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye. The motion carries. Thanks, everyone. Mary Rose, what address should we put in for our, just for a meeting point? And where would you suggest we assemble?
Ron, should we assemble around the corner by the fire hydrant or in the beginning next to the housing?
Either spot. There's not a lot of traffic on the road. But the property is on a curve, so we really shouldn't park on that curve. The frontage is a few 100 feet long, so some people could park before the curve, some people could park after the curve. We'll meet by I presume that real estate sign is still there. I don't know if it is or not that showed up, but I'll be there, a few minutes before everyone else and flag you down. We'll try to clear some paths in towards the rear of the developed area or the proposed development prior to the commission arriving to expedite matters.
Perfect.
Okay, the address you would put in is 117 Cascade Boulevard. That's the apartment complex next door.
Great.
Through you, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Make sure you dress appropriately for walking in the woods. And is there any other information the agency would like to see other than that the city engineer has requested at this time? Understanding after the site walk, there may be more things you're interested in looking at.
Would you mind just showing that recommendation list again?
Sure.
Not seeing it yet. Are you sharing it or?
I thought I shared it. Oh, I guess I did not share it. Hold on. I was quietly reading it. There we try this.
There we go. Right. Thank you. I have nothing further.
Okay.
Anyone else? If not, we can move on to the next item on the agenda. Mary Rose, do you want to introduce this one?
Sure, I'm just letting in Commissioner Bahav.
Thank you.
This is item D1. It's IW 240056, 674 Naugatuck Avenue, map 23, block 362, parcel 29. This is a proposal by 674 Naugatuck Avenue LLC for a parking lot expansion with grading and stormwater system within 100 feet of a wetland in the Housatonic River watershed. The applicant is proposing to add a second driveway for access, enlarge the parking area, and add a stormwater infiltration system for pre-treatment and infiltration of stormwater. The closest work to the wetland is the silt fence, which is within 5 feet of the wetland line at its closest point, and the new curbing for the parking area that's within 11 feet of the wetland at its closest point. The city engineer has requested additional information on the outdoor storage area, as did the commission at the last meeting. Agency was interested in a site walk for this project once they received the city engineer's review, which came in this afternoon. They had several questions. We had several questions last time on the chemicals to be kept on the slabs outdoors, including a request for the material safety data sheets, the potential for alternate locations for those slabs away from the wetlands, design of the containment on and around the slabs for the chemicals that'll be on those areas, how chemicals will be transported into and around the building, and an expert opinion on mitigation strategies to prevent and contain and clean up spills. Mr. Wasmer is here this evening to answer the agency's questions.
Good evening.
Sorry, Mr. Wasmer, but Mary Rose, can you just clarify, do we have any information that's been shared, or are we haven't received anything to date, correct?
Right, we haven't received any new information from the applicant. We did receive the city engineer's memo, if you'd like me to put his recommendations up for review.
No, I just wanted to be clear about the outstanding information we had requested from the applicant. So sorry, Mr. Wasmer, go ahead.
Good evening, Ronald Wasmer. As Mary Rose said, we haven't provided any additional information. At this time, I've spoke with the applicant, and he has 2 consultants that were discussing how to best address the agency's concerns. The bulk of the city engineer's questions, comments are similar to what the agency is asked for, and we will be working on that and provide information in a relatively timely manner. I can't promise that it'll be prior to the next meeting, but I hope it will be. We'll have to see how quickly the 2 other consultants can come up with their best way to address your concerns. But obviously the goal is to move forward here. So if it's not by the next meeting, we certainly would expect it towards the middle of September.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wasmer. Is there anything new that you wanted to add to the record in addition to what you just mentioned?
No, but the site is almost completely developed. So if you did want to schedule a site walk, we could do that prior to the next meeting, or you can wait. It's certainly at your discretion. If we don't get this in quite as quickly as I hope to, then we will provide an extension to the commission.
Okay, thank you very much. Given that, I recommend we take no action and move on, unless there's any other comments from the agency.
I agree.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Munson.
think a sidewalk is premature.
Okay, thank you. Moving on then, thank you, Mr. Wassmer.
Thank
Moving
you.
on to,
Have a good night.
thank you.
Thank
Moving on to the consideration of of the minutes from the previous meeting. They were distributed on the 7th of August. I know personally I've made a couple of comments to staff and they've been changed and modified. There were a couple of inconsistencies that I called out. Did anyone else have any changes to the minutes or did everyone else feel comfortable with the minutes as presented?
Well, I abstain. I wasn't there.
Right. For those that were in attendance, and Mary Rose, maybe you want to add on to what I just said.
Right, Mr. Chairman, I did review, there was one glaring typo that it said the meeting ended at 8:15. Both Taft and I checked the video and the meeting ended at 8:45. I think that was just a Scrivener's error. The minutes were done by a fill-in. It shows how much we miss our Lisa. And Meg did a pretty good job, but there were a couple of things that needed to be fixed. Is there or corrected, and Taft and I watched the video and used that to correct them. Is there any other items that people will want to call out to have updated so that we can amend them? We did not, I don't believe Taft sent the amended minutes out to you, so I would hold off approving those minutes until the next meeting, so that you can have the amended minutes to review.
Perfect. That sounds great. Thanks, Mary Rose, for the suggestion and for the revisions. Appreciate all the work there from both Meg and yourself and Taft. Okay, moving on to staff report.
Alrighty, we've been a little steady busy. Usually it slows down a little bit in August as folks go on vacation, but it's been steady. We've had some staffing issues, several people out in DPLU, so everybody's pinch hitting in other areas to make sure we get the public served. I've talked to several people about some other projects that should be coming in. They probably won't be coming into mid-fall. There was one larger project I thought we were going to have, but it turns out it is all tidal wetlands and it will not be ours. I did have an inquiry this week about modifying a project. You all may remember that in 2016, we approved a housing project at 553 West Avenue for 342 apartments. And then a year or so ago, we modified that approval down to 189 residential units, omitting a secondary road that went out to Schoolhouse Road, omitting filling in a floodplain, filling in wetlands. That all was taken away, and the site has been limited to disturbance in an upland area only. The original plan, because of the amount of work in the wetlands and the floodplain, had a turtle protection plan, because there are eastern box turtles on that site, that required extensive fencing before they could start the project, and that fencing was put in place that had to be maintained, and it limited the location on this very large site of where the turtles could be. At this time, they find they're not doing the large project, they're doing a much smaller project. And so while they're using 6 acres of a large site, on the previous plans, there was 6 acres for the turtles in the woods to hang out in, and they were modifying the rest of the project. In the new plan, they're developing 6 acres and the rest is being left as the nature trail, and the turtle have access to the whole site. So does the agency wish for that reduction of impacts to be brought before them for that modification at a next meeting or at a future meeting? Or since it's a reduction of impact, do you want it just signed off on in the office?
I think it'd be fine if you took care of it, Mary Rose.
Yeah, I know you've all spent a significant amount of time on the turtle, so I want to make sure you're looking at it and you know what you want to do.
Any other thoughts?
The new plan proposes to put a turtle exclusionary fence, which is a short fence that digs into the ground. That's high enough that the turtles can't get over it, right at the edge of the development. So essentially that whole hill and down to the walking trail and out to basically the railroad tracks will now be available for the turtles instead of a much smaller area.
Sounds good to me.
Me too.
I'm comfortable with you doing it. JR.
Thank you. And we'll just modify that. We'll have the new, I've seen a draft of the plans. I'll have it drawn up and that sheet will be added into their permit conditions. Other than that, the standard notes are in my notes for the meeting this evening about training. We're still waiting on, or I think we've got clarification on, I can work on the CRS program. Taft won't be given a stipend to do additional work. So we'll try to do the agency's work and the other work as best we can until we can get through this federal review. We've released a couple of bonds since the last meeting. Castle Lane, 149 Castle Lane, the pool's in, it's stabilized. Site looks good. 69 and 67 and 69 Cooper Avenue are constructed, built, stable. They're done. We need to inspect a couple of sites, and the violation at 8 Pepe's Farms Road, they're just waiting on their fence to be put up and their as-built to get done, and they should be ready for release. That will probably go back on the agenda so the agency can release that violation. Does anyone have any questions for me?
No,
All right, thank you.
My only question, and maybe just for the general interest for anyone watching, Maros, did we have any significant impacts similar to Oxford, or were we sort of out of the impact area?
We were extremely lucky. 10 miles would have made a big difference in our world. The western side of town averaged about 1.7 inches of rain. On this side of town, my gauge got 2.7 inches of rain in that 24-hour span. There was a lot of tree damage. You know, the tree guys have been busy. Actually, I got a complaint today about somebody working in a wetland, and when I contacted the homeowners, they're like, "Yeah, a tree came down in the storm on Sunday. We went in and got it out because it was hanging on the garage." Okay, it's okay. So there was tree damage. We didn't have significant flooding. We did have full moon high tides. Do you get our normal flooding on the beach? Tides were running, I think, about almost a foot over. They weren't too bad. But we have today's tides were half a foot over predicted. And we kind of we'll stay on point with tides, or we'll get up to a foot over if we're getting stormy. And that's kind of the regular tidal cycle we have now. So no, we dodged a bit of a bullet, but that very easily could have been us.
My understanding is that there's some resilience funding that's now going to be available for grants. The state has authorized 75 million or some number like this that municipalities would need to apply for. Right.
So the governor made a declaration, I believe, on Monday afternoon or yesterday morning. I got the notice on that. So the governor makes a declaration of an emergency area. And then we've done it here with the storms. You then have to quantify the damage in your town, and you're looking for everyone to report the damage they have and the dollar amounts to it. As those numbers come in, they're tracked in various ways. The state is moving into a system, and interestingly enough, Region 5, where this damage occurred, is the region that is testing the system. So that worked out well for them. So it's a new system where everybody has a similar desktop. And as reports of damage come in, it gets funneled in through laptops, iPads, telephones, into a same system in the Emergency Operations Center. Those numbers can be viewed by Hartford, DEMIS, the Department of Emergency Management, Homeland Security can see those numbers. And as they add up, as the county numbers get to a certain level, if it hits a certain dollar amount, it qualifies for a presidential declaration. So we've got a state declaration. It could qualify for a federal declaration. Emergency equip funds, emergency watershed protection funds have been released by the Department of Agriculture through the Natural Resources Conservation Service. Those emails have gone out to us as well, because we're on the fringe. You know, we had significant rain, but we didn't have the damage that they saw in Oxford and Seymour. But that damage needs to be reported as well, because it could qualify New Haven County, you know, our area of New Haven County, for those funds, open up those funds and services. We had some of those services after Sandy and Irene, and I believe SIES. So the onus is on the staffing of those towns, which are small towns, to quantify and get all this information in. You try to get that post-disaster assessment done in 72 hours to get those numbers in so that things can roll up to the federal government. And it's a lot of work on pen and paper, which is how we did the last two hurricanes. We're hoping to implement the software that's coming in from the state soon. There's training on it in September. And that would ease things up for the more streamlined staffing that most towns are seeing now.
Yeah, and just to add to what you said, I believe the state is authorizing some 70 million in resilience grants that would have to be applied for. So in addition to this storm event, I believe there's a plan. So I think, you know, that's something that the city should consider.
Yeah, the Hazard Mitigation Committee met on Tuesday. That was briefly discussed. We don't currently have a grant coordinator with the town. Public Works is dealing with a significant amount of other grants that they've gotten in the past. So I think they're working to find someone who can shepherd that grant process. Granting process is a long process, requires significant amount of documentation and match funds. It's usually the federal grants are usually we lay out the money and then they reimburse us if we hit a set of achievements associated with the grant.
Thank you for that. Just good to know, since you do kind of represent the resilience focus for us in your work. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for the staff for Mary Rose? Moving on. Let's see, Chair's report. Thank you everyone for your participation this evening. Great to see you back, Lisa. Thank you. Let's see, next meeting is September 4th. Please let the office know if you're unable to attend. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make it.
Motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Lisa, roll call vote.
Daniel Bedecker,
Aye.
Ranjit Bahav,
Aye.
Brian Black,
Aye.
Jim Connors, Steve Munson,
Aye.
Nick Ritchie,
Aye.
Julie Valvo,
Aye.
Buddy Field,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye, motion carries. Have a good evening. Meeting adjourned.
Have a good evening. Take care.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night, all.
Night.
Lisa, who was that second?
Julie Valvo.
Thank you very much. Everyone have a great week. We'll see you at 5:30 on the 4th.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Night.